That just goes to show that each brand has its hits and misses. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be comparing 4 different dark transfer paper brands. So I'm going to be comparing AVERY, PPD, Newfun, and StarCraft. I just don't have the packaging for that one. So if you're familiar with my channel, last week I posted a version of this but for the light transfers. So that video is dedicated to transfers that go on light colored shirts like white, light pink, things like that. And this one is dedicated to dark transfers. So with dark transfers, it's the complete opposite of the light transfers. So for this one, you can use it on any colored shirt. So it can be like hot pink, black, any dark color, but you could also use these on light colors. So like white, light pink, any of that. So that's a big difference between the two. The dark transfers you can use on any color, and the light transfers you could only use on light colored fabric. So I'm using the same 4 brands that I did with the light transfers. So we're going to see if there's any differences when it comes to the way they press. And all I have to say is never judge a brand by its product, because this video may or may not show different results than that one did. So before getting into the whole comparison, let's talk about pricing. So starting off with AVERY, I got these on Amazon, and for a package of 5 sheets, I paid $11.25. So breaking it down, it's $2.25 for 1 sheet. So next up we have PPD. I got these directly off of their website, but I know that Amazon carries them as well. They are a little bit more expensive on there. So if you're interested in these, I would say just go directly through their website. So for these, for a package of 10, it's $14.90. So breaking it down, it makes it $1.49 for 1 sheet. Then we have a Newfun. I got these off of Amazon as well. This is actually my first time trying these out. So for 5 sheets, it was $10.50. So breaking it down, that makes it $2.10 for 1 sheet. Last up, we have StarCraft. I don't have the package for those because I bought these individually from crafthtv.com. So these don't come in a package. You can just buy as many as you want, which I think is better because you don't have to fully commit to a whole package. But anyways, 1 sheet of these were $1.99. So breaking all of these down, that makes AVERY the most expensive and PPD the least expensive. So now that we have the whole pricing out of the way, let's get started with the comparison. To start, I'm going to open up my photo in Photoshop. And this is the picture that I'm going to be using. Of course, Backstreet Boys, because I'm a Backstreet girl for life. So I'm using the same picture and I divided it into 4. So each section is going to be a different paper. That way I can compare the colors and see if they actually resemble each other or not. And dark transfers don't have to be mirrored, so you don't have to worry about that. So just for reference, this image is 12 inches high. And for the width, I couldn't do it more than 11 inches because, as you know, the paper is 11 inches wide, so I couldn't get away with doing anything bigger. So I decided to stick with that number so it could be a little bit smaller. And when you load these papers into your printer, always make sure that the logos are towards the back and that the photo is printed on the blank side. So to print each of these, I'm just gonna hide each layer and then just send to print. And for these, always make sure to check your print settings. You want the quality to be at best or high. So always make sure to change it and then just go ahead and print each of these. So I put these 4 papers next to each other and I looked at them really close and I realized that the AVERY and the PPD have like a smooth finish on the blank side, and then the StarCraft and the Newfun have more of like a texture to it. You know how cardstock paper kind of has like a graininess to it and some sort of texture? That's exactly how the StarCraft and Newfun are. The StarCraft isn't as intense with the texture. The Newfun definitely has it way more. But I just wanted to mention that those two have a different finish than the AVERY and the PPD, so we'll see if that makes a difference. So once these are printed, I'm just going to let them sit to dry for like 10 minutes and then I'm going to go ahead and cut them. And for the dark transfers, cut directly on your image. You don't want to leave a border because whatever you do leave exposed is going to transfer onto the shirt. So if you don't want a border showing, definitely cut it off. So here they are after they've been printed. We have AVERY, StarCraft, PPD, and Newfun. So right off the bat, there doesn't really seem to be any major differences when it comes to like the shade of pink. Because if you put them together, it just straight up looks like it's a whole piece. Like it doesn't even seem that obvious that it's 4 different papers. Like these two right here definitely blend really well and actually go together. But then we get to this one and there's like a slight difference when it comes to the color of the background. Like this one, it just slightly seems to be a little bit more washed out. Because look at the color, it's kind of like a light gray in comparison to this one that it's like more of a darker gray. So it doesn't really blend. And then with this one, you could tell that it doesn't really flow either. So these, like the shadows seem to be like smooth. It has like a nice gradient to it. But then this one, it's a gradient but like a harsher gradient. It seems to be like more grainy, not like a true gradient that just like is smooth. So this one just seems a bit more washed out. I feel like these blend and have like a true pink, and then this one I feel like has a slight purple tint to it. And also my picture isn't super HD, so there is some pixelation, but I did notice that this one, like their faces, there's some sort of like pixelation going around them. Like there's pixelization right here, and then it like stops with this one. Not sure if you can tell, and it happens over here too. Like you see the little pixels behind his shirt, and then it slightly stops here. Even in his shirt right there, there's like the little pixels, and then this one is like more smooth. So the Avery definitely seems to be less HD than the StarCraft right here. And this one, I feel like just the color isn't the same as this one. Even with the quality, it does seem to be a bit different. Their hands just look extra wrinkly for some reason, like the pixels really did their hands dirty, you know, it just doesn't really look good right there. And this one, you could tell it's pixelated, but it's not as intense as obviously their face where you could tell more, you know. But other than that, there's not one that's like majorly different that completely makes this whole picture look weird. Like they all seem to pretty much flow together, so that's good. So now for the pressing, I'm just gonna put the shirt like this. I'm gonna separate them just because they each have their own different settings, and I don't want to like burn each one in the process, you know. So I'm just gonna do it a different style and just kind of like do them like that. So let's get started with the pressing. So I already went ahead and prepped my shirt. So first up we have Avery. So for the dark transfers, you do have to peel the backing. So for this one, it actually makes it fairly easy because it has like 2 lines. So you just find those 2 lines and then you just rip it off. So you don't have to look for where to peel because it already has it. And try not to be so rough with it. So for some reason I thought this would be easy, and it's not. It's just like stopping. See how it's stopping? Oh my god. And the paper is just ripping, so what's even the point? So this is definitely harder than I thought. It just keeps stopping and it's like leaving little lines. And it's leaving the paper back there. Do you see it? It's leaving it attached. Oh my god. Why did I think this was gonna be super easy? Now how am I supposed to get rid of that? Okay, so we got most of it off, but now we have to get the sections that actually stayed there. And look at all these little particles. Can you see? Oh my god. These little pieces are gonna be so impossible. I mean, at least the image is there, but still. I don't want to get my weeder, because then what if it like pokes through, you know? I honestly have no idea what to do. I think I got it. But see, it still rips. So I finally got it all, but this took way too long, which is kind of annoying. And now I have to use the lint roller again, since look at all these particles. So the settings for the Avery is 325 degrees to 375 degrees. I set my heat press at 350 degrees just to meet in the middle. And then this is gonna be pressed for 30 seconds. And then for these, you do need a silicone sheet or parchment paper, and this one came with the Avery, so that's exactly what I'm gonna use. And then since the StarCraft has pretty much the same settings, it has 350 degrees for 30 seconds. I'm just gonna do it at the same time as this one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and peel the StarCraft. And the StarCraft doesn't have like pre-cut lines in the back like the Avery, so this one you kind of have to find the edge for it. And then you just peel. Look at this one. 100 times easier than the Avery. Oh my god. So like I mentioned, I'm just gonna space them out. So I'm not using the same parchment paper for both since they have different peeling settings. So since the StarCraft didn't come with its own parchment paper, I'm just gonna use the PPD one. And I'm using each parchment paper with the paper that it came in, just because I'm sure they're all the same thing, but for the sake of the video, I'm just gonna use its corresponding like parchment paper. So let's go ahead and press both of these at 350 degrees for 30 seconds. So for the Avery, you let that one cool for 2 to 3 minutes, and the StarCraft, you completely let it cool. So I'm gonna put a timer for that one. And while the other one cools, I'm gonna use a cooling block for this one. Now that it's been 3 minutes, I'm gonna peel the Avery, and the instructions say to peel from top corner to bottom. So let's do that. Oh, look how easy. Wow, super easy. So before peeling this one, I did want to mention that the parchment paper of the Avery, I don't know if you could tell how it kind of has like little like bumps. It's not like completely smooth, so it has little bumps. So looking at this image, if you look at it from a certain angle, you can kind of see where those little lumps were, like the little bumps. So this image on certain spots, it's not completely flat. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to use the things included with each paper, so we could see how each works, you know? So definitely be aware that this parchment paper that comes with Avery, it has like those little bumps. So be aware that you want it to be completely flat like this one. So please be mindful. Like, I don't know if you could see them on camera, but the bumps are like right there and right there. Like this is smooth and then kind of like right there. So keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and peel StarCraft, and we'll do top to bottom as well. Okay, this one was super fast as well, so that's good. So for the StarCraft, since I used the PPD parchment paper, and this one doesn't have any like little lumps or like those little waves, this transfer doesn't have that like texture going on. So the parchment paper is actually important. I didn't even think it was gonna be a problem, but I guess there is, because there's little bumps there. So you want it to be smooth. So next up we have PPD, and this one I'm gonna do solo since it's at 375 degrees for 13 seconds. So let's just go ahead and press this. So for PPD, we have to peel the backing as well. So you have to be very careful, just like we did in the StarCraft. So just find an edge and then peel. And you have to be careful with these edges, because if you poke too much, you can kind of like distress the image itself. Like the particles will come out, so just be careful. And this one is also super easy. So I'm gonna try to put it the same as the other one. Wow, the back of this one feels sticky in comparison to the rest, like way sticky. And this one has like the particles are actually lifting. These other ones didn't have that problem, and it's like curling up on me. So I hope it stays flat when it presses. Can you see the little jagged edge right there? So then for this one, we're gonna use the PPD parchment paper once again. And then this one we're gonna press for 13 seconds. And then this one, it says to let cool for 30 seconds. And now we're gonna peel. So this one also fairly easy to peel. So last up we have New Fun, and this one is for 350 degrees for 25 seconds. So let's just go ahead and peel it as well. And even though this one is for 350 degrees as well, I didn't do it with the Avery and the StarCraft just because of the press settings. You know, those 5 seconds could make a difference, you know, so that's why I left it by itself. So here's another easy one to peel. I don't know what was up with that Avery. I really thought it was gonna be easier because it had the lines, but no way, Jose. So let's just go ahead and set it up right under. And this one as well has its own parchment paper. So let's just go ahead and press it for 25 seconds. So this one is a cool peel as well. So we're just gonna let it cool. And even though it's a cool peel, I can already see the parchment paper lifting right there. So it's not completely stuck like the others are. So now I'm gonna peel it. See, I told you it wasn't stuck. And there you go. So here we have all 4 papers. Honestly, I'm so surprised and so glad that they all actually pressed and none peeled, because you know, if you watched my channel, you've seen when I had experiences with a certain brand that's right here that lifted when I peeled it off. So it's nice to see that they all survived the pressing, you know. So now let's just go ahead and take a closer look at all of them. So here they are once again. We have Avery, StarCraft, PPD, and New Fun, and we have this angle going on again because it just shows everything better and bigger. Dude, it's so funny how this whole image just makes them look like 7 feet tall. But I knew right away that I couldn't put these transfers super close to each other because I knew it was gonna give me issues with pressing. So that's why I gave them little spaces. So now let's just talk about each one. So starting off with the Avery, I talked about it when I pressed it, but that parchment paper, just the waves that it had, it completely pressed on the transfer as well. So I kind of regret now going back and pressing it with a different parchment paper to see if it would like smooth it out. But for the sake of the video, I'm using Avery, so I'm using Avery's parchment paper, because if you're using Avery, you're most likely not gonna have another parchment paper, you know? So that's why I decided to stick with it. And just know, do not use the Avery parchment paper, so just keep that in mind. But other than that, it does seem like it adhered well. I will say there's a section right there in the middle that seems like part of the transfer like lifted, and I think that has to do with like when I was peeling the backing. Like the backing was completely super 1,000 times hard to peel in comparison with these three. Like these three peeled right there, boom, a few seconds. This one, it was like legit 5 minutes or more. I was struggling. I had to stop the camera because I was struggling. So because of the peeling and the little pieces that I had to get, it kind of like lifted right there. I must have just stuck my nail or done something, but yeah, this one was definitely super hard when it came to that, but at least we got the transfer on there, you know, so thank God for that. And now for the StarCraft, out of all of them, this one seems to have like the texture of the shirt peeking through, which I feel like is a good thing because that just shows that it actually adhered to the shirt really well. Because when it comes to HCV, that's what you look for. You want like the texture of the knit to like come through, you know, that just means that it's like pressed really right. So that's exactly how this one is. These two are smooth. This one, the only texture that it has going on is those waves. And also with this one, it has the cleanest lines in comparison to these three. Like there is an edge missing right there. Like, can you see it? I'm sure you can because it's just straight up white. But I think that has to do when I peeled it. I must have peeled it and kind of like snapped it off or peeled it off or something. But other than that, these lines don't have any of the white going on. Can you tell that it's like, you just see black. Like you don't see any of the white. And if you pay close attention to all of these, there's some sort of white going on. Like, can you tell? So I think that white is like the particles like dissolving once you go to cut. So you have to be mindful when it comes to that. But this one, it has a clean cut, dude. You cannot see any white. But yeah, I'm like tripping out on how clean cut it is in comparison to these. So now on to the PPD. When I was pressing, I did mention that it had a lot of little particles on top of here, and I thought those were actually gonna show. But once everything was pressed, you can't really see anything. It's pretty much clean up here, which is a good thing. This section right here isn't as clean. Like you see the little line right there, like the wavy line here as well. Not as much here, but I really thought it was gonna show up here and it didn't, but that's a good thing. And then also for the PPD, when I was comparing them when I first printed them out, I mentioned how like this part right here, the gradient wasn't as smooth as this one, but I feel like after the press it kind of like smoothed it out more. It's not as smooth as this one, but it's definitely more smoother than it was originally. So I feel like the press, like the heat, it added like color to it. It's not as washed out as it kind of looked before, so that's a good thing. Thank God for that, because now I feel like it kind of does match more with the rest of them. You know how when I was first comparing all four of them, these two look the same, so did this one, and this one was like the odd one out, sort of. But now I feel like it all goes smoothly. But anyways, now on to the Newfun. So I will say out of all of them, I feel like the Newfun is the one that has the most white on the edges. Like each line, each edge has some sort of white going on. And in these others, it's like certain parts, not every single one has the white, you know what I'm saying? So this one is definitely more delicate when it comes to the cutting because those particles like lift, which is what creates those little like white edges, you know? So earlier I mentioned that the StarCraft and the Newfun had like a cardstock texture to it, but now looking at it, you can't even tell. Like this one, the StarCraft just has the texture of the knit going on, and this one is like completely smooth. So I think the whole texture and graininess of it didn't even make a difference, which is a good thing. So overall, I don't think there was any major fails here. The only one that I would think maybe a slight fail would be the parchment paper of the Avery, which kind of messed this one up. But other than that, everything seems to be cohesive, everything goes together, nothing seems to stand out to be completely different. All the gradients kind of go. So far, so good. I am gonna do a wash test. You know, I like doing wash tests just to prove to see if they survive or not. And with the wash test, you always gotta wait 24 hours. So that's what I'm gonna do, wait 24 hours, turn it inside out, throw it into the wash. With these, you do have to use cold water. So that's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm just gonna let them air dry, and then we're gonna come back to see how they look. So here they are after they've been washed and air dried. So from the looks of it, they all pretty much survived the wash. Like you don't feel any of the edges lifting, there's no cracking, no peeling, no nothing. I will say though, the Avery, it has some lifting in this corner. It's not like completely peeling, but this corner is lifting a little bit. And in that little corner, just a tiny bit, but other than that, all other corners seem to be pressed really well. Even like the edges and stuff, so that's good. But I will say after the washing, there is some issues with the Avery and the Newfun. So with the Avery, I'm not sure if you can tell, but there's like white sections all over it. Not as much as the Newfun, but you know how I mentioned earlier that there was like a little missing piece right there because of, I guess, my peeling on the backing, which kind of like my nail maybe poked it or something. But after the washing, there's like more missing pieces of the image. So there's some right there, Right there, right there. This one is definitely not as much that you can barely tell, but still, it's like not the complete picture, you know? Now the new one on the other hand, this one you could straight up tell. It kind of seems like white splatter going on. So it's like all there, right there, and there, and there. I don't know what like caused it. So with this one, you can straight up tell, and I don't know if you can tell on camera, there's like some sort of splash going on right there, like some discoloration. Do you see how it's like the gray gradient and then it kind of turns like green? Like you can tell that there was something that just stayed there and stained it. So that's not a good thing. Even right here on the shoes, you could tell it's like some sort of rainbow going on. That's weird. I've never seen that before. That's never happened with any of my transfers before. So the washing on this was definitely not good. Even though I pressed, like the color did not survive, so no bueno. And even though this one kind of lifted a little bit, at least it wasn't a complete fail like this one. So at least we got two that actually full on survived the wash. And here we have the shirt once again. BSB for life. Who's your favorite out of all of them? Who's your favorite Backstreet Boy? I've always been a Nick girl, but the older I get, for some reason, Kevin is like getting hotter and hotter. I don't know why. I'm still a Nick girl, but something about Kevin that's just like, damn. But yeah, here is my shirt. And you pretty much heard my thoughts on each of these transfers. So now I want to rank them in my personal opinion and experience. So starting off with the number 4, it's going to have to go to New Fun, which is this one right here. So I'm not even sure if you can even tell on camera like the discoloration that happened with it. So it just straight up like stained it. I don't even know what happened. I feel like the ink just like dissolved or something. It has like just some green going on right there. Right here too. It just was stained with something. You know how they say wait 24 hours to wash? I feel like that's what they meant, that this might happen. But I legit waited a day and a half to wash these. So it was definitely not me not waiting enough time to wash them, you know, because I did wait. So yeah, it was discolored, it's stained, it like distressed, it has like those little white spots going on. Like even though it did press and nothing lifted, like what's the point of it pressing correctly when it's not even gonna survive like the image itself? Like it just completely ruined the image, so not cool at all. And also this one out of all of them is the one that has the most distress around the edges. Like the edges are just like straight up white, and I feel like that white happens when you go to cut. So when you go cut, you have to be careful because the blade is cutting directly on the transfer, and the transfers seem to be very delicate since they are being peeled off, you know. So I think like it's just so delicate that when it cuts, those like particles like dissolve, so it doesn't create like a straight edge. So it's definitely the most delicate out of all of them because it's the one that looks the most distressed all around. But yeah, overall Newfound is taking 4th place. So coming in 3rd, it's gonna have to go to Avery right here. Their poor faces. So for the Avery, as you saw, this one was hands down the hardest to peel off. I really thought when I saw all of them that this one was going to be the easiest because it already had 2 pre-cut lines down the center of the paper, like the back of the paper. So I was like, this is going to be easy. You're just going to pull 3 different papers. It's gonna be so easy. Hell nah, dude. It took so damn long. I don't know what it was, but you know when you're like peeling a sticker, it like comes apart because it's so sticky and like so stuck on there? That's exactly how this one is. It was leaving so much of the paper backing like on there. I was originally, when this whole thing was happening, I was like, Avery is gonna be last place for me. Like, ain't no way that this is gonna be high ranked, you know, because that just took so long. But then the new one had this whole discoloration happening, and I was like, no, I can get past Avery taking long if it like has a nice outcome, you know. So I was like, new one, I'm sorry, but you're going last. So yeah, Avery, definitely that peeling just completely annoyed me. It took too long and it was so frustrating. And then another thing, the parchment paper that it came with, I'm sure that you saw that it was like wavy, but never in a million years did I think it was going to make the transfer itself wavy. So if you have Avery, my suggestion is do not use their parchment paper unless you really take a look at it and it's not wavy. I have no idea why this one is wavy. Like I haven't used these in a long time and I've never even noticed that. So I just hate the fact that it made the image wavy. Like it's just so weird, such a weird outcome. And then this one, for the most part, it did survive the wash, but there was a little bit of lifting in this corner right here. You could still see that it's like the glue is like really attached to the shirt, but like that edge is lifting. So as long as it doesn't completely come apart, it's not that bad. And another thing is it had a bit of distressing on the image as well. Not as much as the new one, but you do see little white spots that are missing. So there was a spot there originally when I first pressed it that was already there, but that was probably my fault because of the peeling. But see, another reason that the peeling was so annoying was because of that distress right there. Like you can't really tell unless you're like paying attention, but when it comes to comparison, you have to look at every little thing, you know. So that's why this one is taking 3rd place. So now for second place, it's gonna have to go to PPD right here. So this one definitely wasn't as bad as the others. I was skeptical at first with this one because as you saw, this one was the most washed out when I first printed out of all of them. This one was the one that had like a different color. It just didn't flow along with the others. So I was already thinking like, damn, this one's gonna be completely different. But luckily it wasn't, because when you look at the picture, it pretty much flows. So thank God for that. So after it was pressed, this one for sure got its saturation. So that's a good thing. This one survived the wash. There was no peeling, which is good. There was no distress in the image, which is also good. No discoloration. The only thing I would say is like the distress around the edges. So that means it's like a little bit delicate. You see like the white little particles and stuff peeking through. So that's definitely something that's a little bit thrown off. But once you look at it, it's not really a big deal. On this one, it's more noticeable because it's a black shirt. But let's say you were to work on like a light colored shirt or something that's like way lighter than a black, then you won't really be able to tell. So it won't be that noticeable or bad at all. So that's why pretty much PPD is taking second place. So last but certainly not least, my number one is gonna have to go to StarCraft. And if you watched my last video, my light transfer ones, you're gonna be tripping out because the results of these, spoiler alert, completely different than the results for these. So the fact that StarCraft came in first place is such a trip. But honestly, out of all of them, I feel like this one looks 10 times better than the rest. The lines are super clean cut in comparison to all three. Like this one is a straight up straight line. There's no white particles showing, no nothing. That's one of the main reasons why I really like this one. I feel like it's just cleaner than the rest, and it survived the wash. It pressed really well. The texture of the knit is peeking through, so that just shows that it pressed really well, because that's what you look for when it comes to HTV. So I'm pretty sure that's what you should look for when it comes to transfer paper, you know. And also I feel like the fact that it shows that it's really on there, I feel like it's gonna last longer. So after many washes, I feel like it's still gonna be stuck on there, you know. So I think that's a really good thing, because in the end you want your shirt to last, you know. So I feel like the StarCraft for sure is gonna last you. And also my picture was not the greatest when it comes to like quality. It was a little pixelated, but I wanted to use this picture and I couldn't find a more HD version of this, so I stuck with it. I had this idea in mind and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Even if it's pixelated, whatever, I'm gonna do it. And even though this picture was pixelated, I feel like this section wasn't as pixelated as, let's say, these two. Like the PPD, straight up, I don't know what it is, but it made their hands look weird. So it was already like throwing me off in the beginning. But in comparison to the Avery that had like little particles around their shoulders, it seemed like it stopped once it reached the StarCraft. So that was definitely a good thing. Even though it wasn't the most HD picture, I feel like the paper somehow helped it become a little bit more clear, you know? It wasn't as pixelated as the rest of them. But overall, I just feel like StarCraft is the winner for me. I just like the way it looks out of all of them. So that's why StarCraft takes the #1 spot. But even though I ranked all of these and some worked out better for me than the others, I still feel like overall none were a major fail, because look at the shirt. I feel like it still looks cohesive. It doesn't straight up look like it's 4 different papers. I feel like they all flow together. Some might have some discoloration and distress, but overall I don't think it was that big of a fail. At least I got a shirt that looks wearable, you know, because go take a look at the light transfer video. That one is a completely different story. That just goes to show that each brand has its hits and misses. So definitely check that one out if you haven't already. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this comparison. I'll have all of these linked down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.